So it's my pleasure to call Miss Heath.
Thank you. Mr. President, it is with heartfelt gratitude to the people of the Eastern Victoria region and of the Liberal Party that I rise to make my maiden speech in this House on the opening of the 60th Parliament of Victoria. When I consider the weight of responsibility and the very real impact that the debates and the decisions made in this chamber will have on the lives of Victorians, I am both humbled and in awe. Before I continue, I would like to acknowledge some key people who have just been so important in this journey. There are so many I would like to mention, but I cannot mention them all. But first, I would like to mention my mum and dad, Brian and Lynn Heath. Thank you for your incredible love and support throughout my whole life. To my grandfather, that despite being well into his 90s, is here today. Pretty inspiring effort. And I would just like to take this opportunity to remember my beautiful grandma, Rose, and my grandparents, Kit and Arthur Heath, who have made such an incredible impact on my life. I'd like to thank my siblings, who I just saw one of them crying then. My dear friends Sarah and Joel Churchill. I'd like to thank Michael Rowell, Peter Starkey, David Farrelly, Chris Cruther, Bryony Hutton, Aaron Brown, Wayne Farnham, Dale Harriman and David Burgess. Thank you so much for your support every single day of this campaign. I'd like to thank Peter Rawlings and Katrina and Andrew Ronalds and Robert and Julie Knight for taking the chance and giving me a reference when I decided to run for pre-selection. I'm just so very thankful for that. I would like to thank my dear friend and mentor, Bev MacArthur, and the amazing support of the Women's Council of Victoria. Without you, I just wouldn't be here. And I just want to mention some people that have been an incredible inspiration to me that are also, some are here today. Michael Kroger, Helen Kroger, Carol Walters, Alan Tudge and Greg Hunt. Thank you so much for your inspiration. And then, of course, my girl gang, which a lot of them are here, and the Quad Squad. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. I was born and raised in Eastern Victoria, and to now represent this region in Parliament, its people, families, communities, business and industries is the greatest privilege of my life. Eastern region is incredibly strategic to Victoria. It is home to a wealth of natural resources and primary industries that provides water, power and timber to our states. Its farms produce the food that feed our cities and dairy that is exported around the world. Its stunning natural beauty, and it's from its pristine beaches and lake systems to the snow-capped mountains, the breathtaking high country, the lush forests, draws tourists from all around Australia and abroad. Most importantly, its vibrant suburban and regional communities are filled with hardworking people who rally together during fire, flood, storm and pandemic. Without this region, Victorians would not have the standard of living that we enjoy today. When Eastern Victoria prospers, our state prospers. That's why I am passionate to champion this region in the Parliament. I approach this role with the dedication to the community that has always been a significant part of my life. My parents are pastors, and I grew up watching them show care for the elderly, the vulnerable, the underprivileged, and those from broken homes. I come from a large family, and although we didn't have a lot, there was always enough for another plate at the dinner table and a bed for those who didn't have a safe home. This enriched our family and showed me purpose beyond myself. When I was in my late 20s, I co-founded an orphanage in the Philippines. I led a team in fundraising and advocacy that secured enough support from Gippsland to give children a safe haven, food, clothing, education and healthcare. Our efforts extended to neighbouring villages, offering life-changing medical procedures and treatments to help many. Watching these people use the hand up given to them as an opportunity to break the cycle of poverty sparked my early interest in liberalism because I believed I was seeing liberalism in action. I saw orphans break the cycle of dependence and build a new life where they called the shots, where they weren't dependent on anybody else any longer, but they could live life on their terms. The endeavours I have been involved in have given me hope that the answers don't lie in government, but they rest in the individuals and by them empowering their communities. Our region has been through a great deal in the last recent years. In November 2019, lightning ignited a series of fires across East Gippsland known as the Black Summer bushfires. Soon after, 326,000 hectares of land was ablaze. More than 60,000 people were evacuated from their homes in East Gippsland and Hume. My hometown in Sale saw people as close as Bairnsdale, 50 kilometres away, evacuated. Our community sprang into action, ready to provide emergency accommodation and essentials for displaced people. Myself and my colleagues did everything that we could using our skills to provide free chiropractic care to families affected from the fire and emergency personnel in local shelters. By the end of December, 3 fires in East Gippsland burned with such intensity that they created their own weather systems, generating local thunder and lightning, and more than 230,000 hectares of land burnt. Harrowing images of children fleeing from Malakuta to the ocean on rafts, enveloped by a blood-red sky, were truly haunting and apocalyptic. In Victoria, the fires took 5 lives, destroying more than 300 homes and more than 6,500 head of livestock. 3 years on, there are still fire-affected people displaced, without a home and trying to wade through government red tape and insurance claims. And this is to our shame. A local recovery campaign encouraged people to visit fire-affected areas, buy from local businesses, fill up their eskies, and together we were going to get these towns back on their feet. But before anybody could do that, COVID hit. For the next 2 years, we endured multiple lockdowns, regional and remote areas often bearing the same restrictions as Melbourne, even though the infection rate was 0 or low. Just 16 months after, violent storms hit. There were 97 SES call-outs across the eastern region as trees came down, buildings were damaged and power was cut off. The town of Traralgon suffered unprecedented floods. The Yarra Ranges was hit hard, with 5,000 properties affected by flood, 3,000 homes were without power or internet for more than a month. 34 communities lost NBN services and were unable to call 000 for assistance, and the recovery effort is still ongoing. For our region, having been hit hard by these natural disasters and the pandemic, the ability to rebuild and to look forward with hope relies heavily on our industries and our businesses. But government policies are leading the eastern region into an era of uncertainty. The Latrobe Valley's remaining coal-fired power stations will close over the next decade because of renewable energy targets, destroying thousands of jobs. The industries that have kept the lights on in Melbourne for almost 100 years have been demonised and discarded without a thought. There are families behind every single job loss, every single industry and every single business shut down. The hundreds of hard hats that were hung on the fence of the Hazelwood Power Station at its closure in March 2017 are the best indication of the feelings of the workers on the ground. Some of the hard hats read, "Shut down by Greens and Labor." Another one said, "Hanging our hats on a worker transition." The people of the Latrobe Valley have been let down time and time again. In 2019, the government announced it would close the native timber industry by 2030. Many regional communities across eastern Victoria are built on the back of the timber industry. It is estimated that 25% of jobs in Orbost are in jeopardy. When our industries scale down, our once thriving communities decline as jobs are lost and families suffer. I stand before you today as a representative of a region that is hurting, a region that rightly feels neglected, even despised by city-centric legislators, a region that feels its industries and economies are the first to be sacrificed to inner-city priorities without so much as a thought or a plan for their families, jobs and economies. I will champion this region in Parliament. I will advocate for the rebuilding efforts and aid its recovery and policies to secure its future. During the campaign, there seemed to be a lot of fascination around my faith and how it would impact my role in public life. I firstly want to say my faith does not hold anybody else to account. My faith holds me to account. The second thing I want to say is every single person has a worldview that has been developed by their experience, and I am absolutely no different to anybody else. If it is community spirit that has inspired me to serve through leadership, it is my faith that has guided me. I love the scripture, James 1:17, which says, "Every good and perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variation or shadow of turning." I love this scripture because the greatest light in our physical world is the sun. Everything in the galaxy rotates around it, but it is immovable. Everything in the world adapts and changes, but the sun never does. It is the ultimate reference point. If you are lost, you look up and you can find your way back. Everybody has a reference point, everyone. And it is your values, your belief, and your worldview. For me, my faith is my reference point. It is the sun that never moves, and when I am lost, it's what I look to. I want to say unequivocally, regardless of your belief, you deserve political representation. You deserve the right to engage, debate, join a party, have a voice, just like everybody else. I have come to this chamber to represent the people of Eastern Victoria region. If you are a Muslim, if you are a Christian or a Jew, a Buddhist or a Sikh, or whatever it is that you believe, if you are gay or if you are straight, if you're a traditionalist or if you are progressive, there is a place for you and you deserve political representation. My aim in this House is to fight for freedom so that you can live according to your worldview as closely as I follow mine. If you choose faith, I will fight for you. If you choose atheism, I will fight for you. And if you choose nothing at all, I will fight for you. Because for too long, the Victorians have felt pressured by an ideological government pushing its way into the domain of our heads, our hearts and our homes, personal and sacred spaces that should never be regulated by the state. This government has ventured into places it should not go, yet has failed in jurisdictions that we are responsible for. Whilst the government has locked down our states, shut down our businesses, told us who can come to our homes, uncovered our medical records, people have been dying on the side of the road waiting for an ambulance, budgets have blown out by billions, roads and infrastructure have crumbled, corruption was rife, and integrity in public institutions compromised. I believe that this is the cost of over-governance. My dream is not for a progressive government that operates beyond its jurisdictions, but it is one that returns to its core business, going back to basics, serving the people, managing the budget, maintaining law and order, delivering infrastructure, transport and essential services like health and education. For 2 terms, the government has failed on all these fronts, and it's time for a reprioritisation of policy. Victorians should not be told what to think, what to say, how to worship, how to raise their children. This is symptomatic of a failed socialist experiment which has reinvented itself as a cultural movement in our time. It is time for the government to get out of families, Get out of homes, get out of doctors' rooms and get out of classrooms, get out of churches and temples and businesses, and get back to the areas that we're responsible for, which we are failing at dismally. I believe in basing policy on the rights of the individual rather than the collective, and on evidence and not ideology. During the past 8 years, this government has divided Victorians along the lines of gender, race, class, sexuality, religion and any other measure of difference. Labor's lopsided equality has rewarded some to the detriment of others. It has not created a more caring society, but a fractured one. For too long, Labor has asserted that it is the party of dignity, equality and compassion, while spruiking ideologies that divide, economic principles that create government dependence and policies that punish some and reward others. I believe that the Liberal Party is the party of true compassion, and it is time for us to reclaim compassion. It's the ideals of the Liberal Party, espoused by Sir Robert Menzies, that have given rise to progress, social justice, service and volunteerism. The values of the Liberal Party give people the freedom to build their own lives, families, businesses and careers, to take risks, receive rewards and create opportunities for other Victorians from their success. We must reclaim the five fundamental freedoms that are the great legacy of Western civilisation: freedom of speech, association, religion, assembly and movement. These took centuries to develop. These were forged out of the darkest moments of human history, including slavery, wars, genocide, persecution and prejudice. If we don't protect freedom, we risk repeating the harrowing lessons that have brought us to this point. These rights are universal, not partisan. They promote opportunities for all Victorians. If we are to govern for all people and to heal the divisions between us, we must return to the universal ideals that build our shared interests and unite us as Victorians. I believe that it's time for us to shake off the pandemic mindset, and it's time for us to return to the foundations that have made us prosperous, united and free. As we step into this next chapter, let's trade shutdowns for innovations, social distancing for togetherness, government directives for personal responsibility and fear for courage. Let us look towards the future so we can build a better tomorrow. To do this, we must provide the best start for the next generation. It concerns me a lot that despite record funding into education, our standards are dropping. Research shows that over the last 20 years, Australian children have lost 1 year of learning. The average 15-year-old in Australia is 3 years behind the average 15-year-old in Singapore in mathematics. We need to look at why this is occurring, and we need to correct it so our children can have the best start at life. Schools should not be a hub of indoctrination, rather they should be a centre of education. Students shouldn't graduate as activists, but rather as individuals that are equipped to become the scientists, the entrepreneurs and the thought leaders of tomorrow. Schools should teach facts, not narratives. Students should be taught how to think and not what to think. Our young people are the future, and we need to give them the freedom and the resources to create that future. The last area I want to talk about is one that is extremely close to my heart, and it's the area of reconciliation. An incredible man who wrote a reference for me when I ran for pre-selection is part of the stolen generation. He's not somebody that's out there without a face. He's right here with us in this room today. Robert Knight is a humble yet brave man with a harrowing story, and I would like to read you a bit of his story in his words. He writes, I was taken from my family at 7 years of age and put in police cells and institutions. A man was kicked to death in that same cell a week before they locked me in there. There was still blood on the doors. I was scared, crying all the time, frightened. I couldn't understand why I was put in the cell. From there, I was sent to a boys' home. I can still picture my mum weeping her heart out at the train station while I was taken. I couldn't escape the carriage of the train I was put on. I didn't see my mum for 3 or 4 years later. This happened to me and 8 of my brothers. My older brother's stories are more horrific than mine. When I came back to my family, I had no respect for anyone. I was out of control. Even as an adult, I have seen some of these police officers that have done some seriously wrong things to me growing up. The relationship between Aboriginal people and non-Aboriginal people was very bad. While Kevin Rudd gave the apology, I cried the whole way through it. It really touched me, but some Aboriginal leader had to stand up and respond to that apology. For me, having someone apologise needed a response from an Aboriginal leader to have reconciliation. Like it says, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that have trespassed against us. True reconciliation can eventuate if someone is allowed to stand up and respond to the apology. Something has started but was not finished. I have experienced such restoration. I even became a police liaison officer. Relationships have been built over time with non-Aboriginal people, and I've literally felt the hatred and the bitterness leave my life. My family is Aboriginal. Renee's family is non-Aboriginal. The relationship that started with me and her parents' generation has gone on to our kids. Our families have now walked together for 3 generations and over 20 years. We have been reconciled. It's a small part, but if we can experience reconciliation, the nation can too. I know if she gets this job, she will carry that heart into the Parliament. I know she loves my people. It's the end of the quote. What happened all those years ago was a result of horrific decisions made by government. That is why I will never be able to accept the government telling me who matters and who doesn't. We are all equal. No one is born inferior. No one is born superior. It doesn't matter what your colour is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. It doesn't matter what your belief system is. We are all precious. When the government tries to tell us who matters, we open the way for destruction. There has been so much talk of reconciliation and many proposals to achieve it. But the benchmark of reconciliation is not tokenism. The benchmark is articulated by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they are not judged by the colour of their skin, but by the content of their character." My dream is that his dream, spoken all those years ago, will become a reality in our lifetime. That we will come to the table of brotherhood, and that will happen in the homes of individuals where we face our fears, address our prejudice and walk together, not as people who are the same, but as people that connect and celebrate our differences. Restoration doesn't take place in Parliament alone. It takes place in hearts and homes everywhere, and that is up to us. Like my dear friend Robert said, who is here with me today, something was set in motion when Kevin Rudd spoke those words, but I believe it is going to be complete in us. My dream is that the decisions made in this chamber would serve all people, not just some. It will bring people together and it won't divide, because a people healed and not a people divided. So in closing, I am committed to fight in this chamber for our region, to champion freedom and to make decisions for all Victorians, not just some. And that is my promise. Thank you.